They raised their glasses, toasted to Dr. Emily Carter, and clinked them like they'd just won a war. Everyone was laughing, hugging, congratulating her, my wife. The woman who stood beside me 2 years ago and said, "We're doing this together." Tonight, she stood at the center of the banquet hall in a white dress that shimmered like polished betrayal, glowing with pride while I stood in the corner with a bitter drink in my hand and a USB drive in my pocket that was about to ruin everything. That party wasn't just a celebration, it was her coronation. Her parents flew in. Her best friends lined up to take pictures. The dean of the school even made a speech. And me? I was the guy who parked the car and watched her live a life we were supposed to build together. 2 years ago, we both got into the same med school, Columbia. We were shocked, ecstatic, and terrified. The tuition was monstrous, and neither of our families could cover both. I still remember sitting in our cramped kitchen with the acceptance letters spread on the table, making a plan. We agreed we'd take turns. She goes first, I work, then I go, she works. Simple. Fair. Until it wasn't. 3 weeks later, I lost my slot. Waitlisted, the letter said. No explanation. No appeal. I was devastated. Emily comforted me too perfectly. She had just enough tears, just enough sympathy, just enough soft kisses and false hope. Then came the bill, $112,000 wired from our joint savings to her school. Without a word to me. I confronted her. We agreed, Emily. We had a plan. She didn't even look up from her laptop. Plans change. That's it. No apology. No guilt. Like I was a roommate who had overstepped. She said it was a strategic investment, that she was more likely to succeed faster, that I could still apply later, that we'd figure something out. A month after that, her phone started going silent around 10 p.m. She started coming home smelling like men's cologne, citrusy, with a hint of expensive betrayal. I knew what was happening. I just didn't want to believe it. Then I found the emails. Not even well hidden. One from a cardiology professor. One from a married orthopedic surgeon. One from her classmate, James. Always James. Last night was unreal. Still feel you on me. Still taste you. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I started saving screenshots. Then I bought a small voice recorder. And 2 days before the party, I got what I needed. She was at a spa with her mother and 2 friends. She left her iPad connected to our shared cloud. I opened her notes app. A draft of a speech. I'm proud to have done this alone. No shortcuts. No crutches. No one to lean on but myself. Crutches. That was me. So tonight, I waited until the speeches were done. Until her mother pulled her into a hug and whispered, loud enough for me to hear, "You deserve this." He didn't. Until they passed around slices of gold-foiled cake and started taking selfies under the future Dr. Carter banner. Then I walked to the stage and asked for the mic. My hands were steady. My voice calm. Before we all go home, I just want to say a few words. I want to thank Emily for reminding me of something very important tonight. Everyone turned. That silence and betrayal often wear the mask of intelligence and ambition. That some people climb to the top not because they're gifted, but because they're willing to burn anyone who loved them. Murmurs. Her mother shifted. Emily's face tensed, lips twitching. I want to thank her for paying her tuition with our savings. For canceling my admission behind my back. For rewriting our story without my name in it. Gasps. And lastly, I said, pulling the USB from my pocket, I want to show you the kind of loyalty this future doctor practices behind the scenes. It's all here, emails, messages, and recordings. With timestamps. From her mentors. Her classmates. Her lovers. The screen behind me flickered to life. Their faces turned pale. And suddenly, the crown on Emily's head didn't shine so bright. Emily lunged forward, almost tripping over her heels, and hissed into the mic, "You're pathetic." Her voice cracked, not with guilt, but fury. The crowd froze. No one clapped. The music had stopped. The projector was still paused on a screenshot. "Can't wait for your lips again under my desk. Winky face. James." Her father looked like he'd swallowed glass. Her mother had gone white. I could see her best friend whispering something to the girl beside her, both of them slowly backing toward the exit. I turned the mic off. No more words were needed. Emily grabbed my arm. "You want to humiliate me? After all I did for us?" I yanked away. "You did for us? You bought your way in with my sacrifice. You stole my spot, my future, and now you think you're the victim? Because I earned it." She snapped. "You wouldn't have made it through first semester. I saw your MCT scores. You would have dragged us both down." I felt that one. Not because she was right, but because she believed she was. Somewhere along the line, the woman I loved convinced herself that ambition justified treachery, that stepping on me was noble, efficient. Her mom approached and whispered sharply, "You could have handled this in private." "No," I said, staring straight into her eyes. "You raised a woman who used me, discarded me, and then celebrated herself like she was a self-made queen. Tonight was her parade. I just provided the mirror." Emily tried to snatch the USB from my hand, but I was already walking away. I heard murmurs behind me. Shuffling. Phones coming out. The night unraveled fast. A couple of her professors slipped out the back. The dean quietly walked to the exit without a goodbye. She chased after me into the hallway, her heels clacking like gunshots. "You think you've ruined me?" she spat. "You think showing a few messages is going to end my career?" I turned, still calm. "Career? I don't care if you become the president of every hospital on the East Coast. This wasn't about your diploma, Emily. This was about your character." She scoffed. "Spare me the speech. You were weak. Always needed hand-holding. I got tired of dragging you. And you never once looked back to check if I was bleeding." She rolled her eyes, arms crossed. That smug look again. The one I used to misread as confidence. It was cruelty. It had always been cruelty. "Let me guess," she said, voice dripping with contempt. "You think you're the hero now? You think people are going to take your side? Please. They'll forget in a week. I'll still graduate. I'll still get my residency." I stepped in closer, lowered my voice. "You're right. People forget. But institutions don't. Columbia's honor board doesn't. HR departments don't. I didn't just bring proof of cheating on me. I brought proof of ethical violations, misconduct, favoritism, and bribes. You and your golden boy, James? You weren't just unfaithful. You broke code. They'll see everything. And you know what the worst part is?" She blinked. "I didn't do this out of revenge. I did it because somewhere, some kid just like me is about to get waitlisted again while someone like you lies, schemes, and slips through." For once, she had no answer. Her jaw clenched. She looked away. I walked to the parking lot, the cool night air hitting my face like release. I got into the car and sat still for a moment, listening to the silence. And then, behind me screaming, a sharp female voice. Her mother, yelling at her. I didn't look back. I just turned the key. The engine hummed like peace. I drove through the city like it didn't belong to me anymore. Like every street had been painted over with lies. My hands were steady on the wheel, but inside, everything was cracking in slow motion. You don't just walk away from someone you build a life with. You tear pieces of yourself off with every step. I didn't go home. Home didn't exist. It was just a place full of her smell, her things, her voice on voicemail she thought I didn't hear. So I drove to the lake, the one we used to sneak out to during finals week, swearing the stress would kill us unless we had pizza and made-out sessions under the stars. We carved our names into a tree there once. Hers was first. I stared at the black water for hours. No music. No talking. Just wind and silence and the occasional car passing behind me. The anger had burned out, and now the ache had settled in like a weight in my chest. It wasn't about med school. It wasn't even about James. It was about every moment she could have told the truth and didn't. Every opportunity to choose love and chose herself instead. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't answer. Then a message. "James, you didn't have to ruin everything, man. You think you're noble? You're just bitter." I almost laughed. Bitter? No. Bitter is quiet. This wasn't quiet. This was a firestorm. And it was just beginning. Next came a message from Emily. "Emily, hope you're proud of yourself. You embarrassed me. You embarrassed my family. My career is at risk. We could have handled this like adults." Adults? I typed back. Me. Adults don't steal futures. Adults don't lie with a straight face for 2 years. Adults don't turn love into a business plan. She didn't respond. I finally drove back around midnight. Parked 2 blocks away. I didn't want her to know I was coming. Quietly climbed the stairs. The lights were off. Her car was gone. Probably at her mom's. Or James's. Or whatever friend she hadn't burned yet. Inside, the apartment felt haunted. Still full of her perfume and her ambition. I walked through it like a museum. Picked up the framed photo from our anniversary, tossed it in a box. Her white coat hanging by the door, folded it in half, stuffed it in a garbage bag. Not out of spite. Just necessity. I needed space to breathe. Then I sat at the kitchen table. Pulled out the printouts. All the emails. All the call logs. A list of tuition payments that didn't line up with our shared account records. I had been so busy supporting her, I didn't notice the second checking account she opened in her name only. She'd been planning this for a while, long before I found James, long before the waitlist. I opened my laptop, drafted an email to Columbia Med Ethics Committee. Subject: formal complaint, academic misconduct, and faculty impropriety. Attached every single piece of evidence. Annotated. Timestamped. I paused before sending. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was reality correcting itself. There were rules. She broke them. And now, she had to face them. I clicked send. Felt my chest rise. For the first time in months, I could breathe all the way in. Then I saw something on the floor. A card. Probably fell off the fridge when I opened it earlier. It was from her first semester. A thank you card. From James. To Emily, thank you for always being the smartest one in the room. And the best one under the desk. J. Sharp, glossy paper. Gold script. Smiling, smug, disgusting. I lit it on the gas stove. Watched the flames curl the edges, turn the ink to ash. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't broken, but because I was finally done pretending I wasn't. The next morning felt different. Not lighter. Not hopeful. Just clear. Like the fog had finally lifted, and I could see the wreckage for what it was. I didn't shave. Didn't shower. I just sat at the edge of the bed, our bed, and stared at the empty pillow next to mine. The one she used to sleep on. The one where she used to lie and whisper things that felt eternal but clearly had an expiration date. At 9:12 a.m., I got an email back from Columbia's ethics office. They had received the documentation and would be launching a formal inquiry. I stared at the screen, rereading that line until it felt carved into me. Then came the knock at the door. 3 firm raps. I opened it slowly. Emily. Her hair was pulled back into a perfect ponytail. No makeup. Sweatshirt. But still somehow curated. Like she wanted to appear humbled. I didn't say anything. Just stepped aside and let her walk in. She didn't ask. She walked around like she still owned the place. Picked up a mug. Poured herself coffee. Like nothing happened. Like the world hadn't just caved in around us. She finally sat across from me at the table and said, "I'm not here to apologize." Of course she wasn't. "I'm here because this doesn't end like this," she added, calm, almost condescending. "You want to blow things up? Fine. But I built something. You don't get to take it from me." I stared at her, baffled. "I didn't take anything. You handed me the detonator and dared me to press the button." She smirked. "You're dramatic. That's always been your problem. You used me." "I made a decision," she snapped. "A smart one. You couldn't afford it. I could. I chose to invest in the one who had a better shot." I blinked. "You mean yourself?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Me. Because I was always going to go further. You were always going to be the guy carrying my bags." My hands clenched. I didn't even realize I was squeezing the edge of the table until my knuckles turned white. "You really believe that?" I asked. She shrugged. I didn't want to. But eventually, yeah, I did. I stood up. I couldn't sit across from that face anymore. That voice. That delusion. "You're not just arrogant," I said. "You're rotten." She stood too. "You think you're better than me now? Because you exposed a couple of texts? Go ahead. Destroy my med school career. Do your little morality dance. But in 5 years, I'll be wearing a white coat, making 6 figures, and you'll be where exactly?" It took everything in me not to laugh. Not because it was funny, but because I finally understood she was terrified. This whole performance, this icy bravado, it was a wall. A cracked one. "You really think the worst thing I've done is email your dirty secrets?" I asked, walking past her to the living room. "What else could you possibly, I turned around, holding a file. "James's wife called me last night." Her mouth twitched. Just for a second. But it was enough. She's a lawyer. And she's already spoken to the hospital board. Apparently James didn't just violate school ethics. He violated a morality clause in his teaching contract. Emily took a step back. She also has photos. From that cabin trip last month. "You remember the one you told me was a solo study retreat?" Color drained from her face. "Just a little." "You're bluffing," she said. I tossed the file on the couch. "Go ahead. Open it." She didn't move. "Get out," I said finally. She looked at me, long and quiet, and then something changed. The mask slipped. Just for a breath. Her eyes shimmered, but not with regret. With rage. Like I had taken something from her. "You think this makes you a hero," she hissed. "You're still nothing without me." I didn't answer. I just opened the door. She walked out without another word. And when it closed behind her, the silence that followed didn't feel empty. It felt like freedom. The door clicked shut behind her, but the echo of her presence still lingered like a stain in the room. I leaned against the wall for a while, just breathing. Not because I needed the air, because I needed the stillness. Everything inside me had been loud for too long. I was finally alone, and I wasn't afraid of the silence anymore. I looked around the apartment, our apartment, though it never really felt like ours. It always felt like hers. I had just been borrowing space in her empire. The furniture, the art, the tiny wine fridge she insisted we needed. It was all curated for the version of life she was building, one where I was supposed to be the quiet, supportive shadow. The forgotten man in the graduation pictures. Not anymore. I spent the next few hours gathering what was mine. The books she never touched. The watch my father gave me. A handful of clothes that still smelled like old ambitions. Everything else, I didn't care. She could keep the couch, the TV, the espresso machine she bragged about to her friends. Let her sip her coffee in a cage of her own design. Around 3 p.m., I got a message from James's wife again. Monica, the hospital's already moving. They're reviewing his conduct file. Your info helped. Then another one. Monica, he tried to call me 5 times. I blocked him. He doesn't know it was me who gave them the photos. Don't tell him. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Let them tear each other apart from the inside. They built their castle on deceit. Now it was collapsing one exposed brick at a time. That night, I checked into a hotel. Nothing fancy. Just clean sheets and no memories. I stared at the ceiling for hours, wondering how I got here, how love had turned into a calculated betrayal so precise it felt surgical, how she could lie so effortlessly, smile while stealing, kiss me goodnight after wrecking everything we planned. But somewhere in the middle of that spiral, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. Because now, there was nothing left to lose. She took it all. The future, the partnership, the plan. And in return, she gave me the one thing she never intended to clarity. I was free. The next day, the call came. Mr. Carter? The voice asked. Yes. This is Dean Halvorson from Columbia's Office of Academic Integrity. We've reviewed your file. We'd like to speak to you further, in person if possible. I paused. My throat tightened. Of course. I can be there today. We'll expect you at 4:30. Click. I stared at my phone, then smiled. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about what she thought I couldn't do. She killed my chances. Now I was going to rebuild them right in front of her. By 4:15, I was on campus. Tie tight, shoes polished, file folder under my arm. I walked through those doors not as the man who lost everything, but the man who survived it, who looked betrayal in the face and didn't blink. The receptionist waved me through. 2 faculty members waited in a conference room, glasses perched, suits pressed. I sat down, placed my folder on the table, and said, "Thank you for seeing me. I believe there's something you need to know, not just about Emily Carter, but about how she got here." And this time, when I spoke, I didn't tremble, because she wasn't the only one who had a future worth fighting for. They listened. Every word. Not the kind of half-listening you get when people are just being polite. No, this was surgical. Calculated. Eyes narrowed. Pin scratching. They asked follow-up questions, real ones. Verified receipts. Confirmed screenshots. They asked about the secondary bank account she used to move tuition money. They noted the timing of my revoked offer. They weren't shocked, but they were disturbed. I could see it in the way the older man leaned forward, like he was piecing together a puzzle he didn't want to finish. When I was done, they were quiet. Then the woman on the left, Dr. Morgan, said, "If what you're saying holds, there could be grounds not only for her expulsion, but for criminal inquiry." I didn't nod. I didn't smirk. I just said, "I don't want to destroy her. I want the truth to matter." And for once, the truth actually felt like it did. They thanked me, promised formal communication within the week, and asked if I'd be willing to make a statement on record if needed. I agreed. Gladly. Then I left. As I walked out of that building, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel like some avenger or crusader. I just felt clean. Like I'd been dragging a corpse behind me for 2 years and had finally let go of the rope. That night, I went back to the apartment one last time. It was dark inside. Empty. She'd come and taken most of her stuff, left behind a few broken hangers, the shattered remains of a wine glass near the sink, and a note I didn't read. I didn't care what it said. I was done reading her lies. I grabbed the last of my boxes and was about to lock the door when I noticed something out of the corner of my eye, her old laptop, forgotten under the couch. The one she used in undergrad, covered in stickers. Probably hadn't been touched in months. I hesitated. Then I picked it up and tucked it under my arm. Not out of spite. Out of instinct. It wasn't until 2 days later, after I'd settled into a short-term rental and had silence for company, that I opened the laptop. No password. She never bothered. Thought she didn't need to hide anything from me back then. But she did. What I found wasn't just messages. It was planning. Dates. Excel sheets with projected earnings, contacts for professors, even a draft for a paper she hadn't written but was going to claim for herself. Plagiarism. Networking with donors under false identities. Photos. Voice memos. One in particular stopped me cold. "I don't feel guilty," she whispered to someone. "I feel smart. He's loyal. Sweet. But he's not meant for this world. He'd drown in it. I'm just sparing him the failure." That's who she was. She thought betrayal was mercy. She thought ruining me was a kindness. I copied everything. Encrypted it. Backed it up twice. Sent it to Columbia with a single line. "You might want to expand the scope of your investigation." Then I closed the laptop and threw it into a recycling bin behind a gas station. It was done. All of it. 2 weeks later, I got a letter. From the university. They offered me a place. Deferred entry. Scholarship review pending. Apparently, my story reached the right ears. And hers? Her name disappeared from the website. Her LinkedIn went dark. James's hospital scrubbed his photo from the resident directory. No announcement. Just silence. The kind that only comes when everything beneath the surface collapses. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. But that night, I poured a glass of cheap whiskey, raised it to no one, and whispered to silence. Because in the end, she made one mistake bigger than all the lies, the cheating, the schemes. She thought I wouldn't fight. She thought I needed her. But all I needed was to remember who I was before her. The days blurred after that. I didn't post about it. Didn't text mutual friends. I didn't even tell my parents, though they'd heard whispers and knew something went down. I let the world keep spinning without needing to attach my name to the fallout. She could tell whatever stories she wanted, if anyone still answered her calls. But quietly, life started coming back. I started volunteering at a local clinic a few nights a week. Not glamorous, not prestigious, but real. People in pain. People who needed help. I wasn't a doctor yet, not even close, but they let me shadow, handle paperwork, translate for patients. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was doing something that wasn't about proving her wrong. It was just about doing something right. Sometimes I caught myself imagining what she'd say if she saw me there, maybe something sharp and condescending, like, "You're still playing assistant, huh?" But that voice in my head faded with each week. I stopped measuring my progress against her shadow. I started measuring it by the man I was becoming. One night at the clinic, I bumped into an old professor, Dr. Kaplan. He used to teach us pre-med ethics back in undergrad. He looked me up and down and said, "Didn't expect to see you here." I shrugged. Didn't expect to be here. He paused. Heard what happened. Quietly, of course. Whole department still buzzing. "They'll never say it, but you did the right thing." I didn't know what to say to that. He looked around, leaned in, and said, "Just promise me something." "What's that?" "When they finally hand you that white coat, wear it better than she ever would have." That one hit me harder than I expected. After he walked off, I sat alone in the break room and stared at the vending machine. Cheap snacks. Flickering light. Nothing special. And I just smiled. Because for once, there wasn't a plan. No great scheme. No ambition tied to someone else's timeline. Just me, doing what I could, one day at a time. A week later, I got an email. Scholarship approved. Full ride. I stared at it for a long time. Then I laughed. Out loud. Alone in my rented apartment with boxes I still hadn't unpacked. The kid who was told he wasn't enough just got told, "We believe in you." I never told her. Never messaged. Never gloated. She didn't deserve that satisfaction. I left her where she belonged, in the ruins of her own making. I heard later that James left the city. Emily moved back in with her parents. Her mom apparently had a breakdown trying to manage the situation. Someone said she was trying to apply to med schools in the Caribbean. No one was accepting. Poetic. But I didn't revel in it. Because by then, I'd already let her go. The last piece of her died the night I stood in front of a class of incoming students, part of a peer orientation group they threw together for new admits. And as I introduced myself, I realized I didn't think about her once that morning. Not when I shaved. Not when I tied my tie. Not when I walked into that building she once claimed as hers. I was free. No more lies. No more shadows. Just the slow, steady climb of a man who learned the hard way that love should never feel like a transaction. And betrayal? It doesn't break you. It wakes you up. 1 year later, I stood in front of a hospital mirror, straightening the collar of my white coat. It still felt unreal. The badge with my name on it. The clipped ID. The stethoscope hanging like a symbol of everything I wasn't supposed to become. They said I wouldn't make it. She said I wouldn't make it. But there I was. Breathing. Standing. Living proof that rock bottom isn't where you end. It's where you dig deeper. I left the past behind for real the day I got a letter. From her. No return address. Just my name, and her handwriting still flawless, still practiced. I opened it. A single page. I heard. You got in. Guess you proved me wrong. Hope it was worth everything you lost. I stared at it for a moment. Then I smiled. Folded it in half. Dropped it into the trash can next to the nurse's station. Didn't even rip it. Because I didn't need to. The past doesn't deserve destruction. It deserves forgetting. And that's what she became. Just a lesson I had to learn the hard way. Love, when real, builds. Hers broke. She tried to make me small so she could shine brighter. But I wasn't born to orbit anyone. I was born to burn. The attending doctor called my name, and I walked toward my first real shift like I owned the hallway. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I found something better. A life that didn't include her. And that was the real victory.